Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar with the Institute for Integrative Health and Fitness Education. Welcome to this edition of Facebook Live with Integrative Movement Insider. Thanks so much for joining us on part 3 of a 4-part series on training the gluteal complex. And this comes from information from the book that I wrote last year, The SOAT Solution, and information I'm going to be presenting at the Perform Better Functional Training Summit in Rhode Island this weekend. So if you're there, be sure to stop by and say hello. Recall from the first 2 segments of this 4-part series, we discussed the importance of using an optimal strategy for having our clients activate their glutes. That most of our clients, even though they've been considered to have weak glutes or gluteal amnesia, things like that, it's really because of the strategy they're using to actually activate their glutes. So one of the things that our clients need to do is create that proper or optimal hip hinge pattern. So most of our lower extremity patterns, especially to load the glutes and posterior chain, is all about creating that anterior pelvic rotation. Rotation of the entire thoracolpelvic cylinder over top the femoral heads, because that appropriately, eccentrically loads that posterior hip complex, the glutes, hamstrings, and the entire extensor chain. So the motion comes around the femoral heads or around the hip joint itself. And that's ultimately how we help our clients activate their glutes, because then as they eccentrically load, then during the concentric phase of their exercise pattern, whether they're deadlifting and or squatting, they're just using the glutes concentrically to lift back up. And then we also don't have our clients over squeeze and go into posterior pelvic tilt, where they're driving the pelvis forward of where the thorax is. We want to maintain that thoracolpelvic cylinder alignment through all their patterns. Another common pattern we'll teach our clients, a great progression for the majority of your clients, because most of our clients need to do steps, and most of our clients will have discomfort when they do steps because they're not loading their posterior hip complex appropriately. So here's how we modify how our clients are doing step-ups so they get the maximum use of their glutes and actually promotes optimal alignment and control of their entire lower extremity. It takes stress off the knees and low back. So it begins with the hip hinge pattern and making sure you're using a step height that's appropriate for your client. Because most of our clients are using a step that's too high, so when they put their foot up on the step, they go into posterior pelvic tilt, so you can't use your glutes appropriately from that max posterior pelvic tilted position. So we use a step height that's appropriate for our client, and then position the body up over top the step, so that way your glute is in the right position to now lift the person, you up towards the ceiling. So the TPC is aligned, position the leg over top, the foot over top the step, and your body is over top the foot to begin, and now step up to touch, and then come back and control that eccentric position. So essentially it looks exactly like our split squat and our lunge patterns that we did in the last segment of this series, but you're just stepping up now. Step up, and then come back down. Up, come back down, so that way you're always eccentrically loading that forward hip. So I'm never putting my weight back to the back leg like this. I stay over top my front leg. Up, coming back down, control the eccentric phase. So that way, this front hip is working the entire time. Very little effort is being used, I should say. Very little activation is coming from my left hip. It's always from the hip that's up over the step. I'm gonna flip around from the back side. It's the same idea. Get yourself set up over top the step. Keep the pelvis level. Keep your thoracolpelvic cylinder aligned. Then step up, and then come back down. Up, come back down. Load that hip the entire time of the forward leg. Do not put the weight onto the back leg. Your progression is basically just stepping up to a single leg stance. So again, align your TPC, step, put your body weight over top that foot, and now just step up, single leg stance, then come back control. Up, single leg stance, come back and control. So that way the weight stays over top my forward leg, I load the hip, and that's why it looks like I'm leaning forward, because I'm hinging forward. My entire thoracolpelvic cylinder is hinging forward so that I activate the glute. Up, come back. So essentially I'm eccentrically loading, so then I can concentrically load the hip as I come into my stance position. Great way to use the glutes appropriately, activate that posterior hip complex, and really teach the client how to maximally activate their glutes and use their hips in a manner that supports their thoracolpelvic cylinder, supports single leg stance, and takes stress off the knees and off the low back. And that's ultimately how you create a more optimal and efficient strategy for your clients. And that's what we're ultimately trying to do through this entire 4-part series, is give you strategies to improve how your clients are using their glutes, because as we said earlier, it's not because your clients have weak glutes, they just don't know how to activate them. And it's really all about aligning and controlling that thoracolpelvic cylinder, and then creating that hip hinge pattern, because then basically all your patterns, your squats, your deadlifts, your lunges, your stepping patterns, step up type patterns, step down patterns, all come off your client's ability to hip hinge and align and control that lower extremity. This is Dr. Evan Osler with the Institute for Integrative Health and Fitness Education. On Thursday, I'll come back with part 4 of this 4-part series and show you another easy modification for a very common glute exercise. And again, this simple modification will make this exercise so much more effective for your clients, taking stress off their knee and their low back, and really improve single leg stability beyond the step up. So if you're going to be at Perform Better Functional Training Summit, be sure to stop by and say hello. Look forward to seeing you there. And if not, we'll see you Thursday on Facebook Live for Integrative Movement Insider. Make it a great day. We'll see you next time.